Hello my friend, welcome to my YouTube channel Smart Web Key. My name is Nathan, a front-end developer from Melbourne. Today I'm very excited to talk about React Server Component, which is the biggest news in front-end of 2020. Just right before the Christmas, Dan Abramov and Lauren Tan made a great demo about React Server Component. For those of you who doesn't know what is a React Server Component, I would suggest that you go through the 1-hour demo. The main takeaway of this new feature, even though it is still experimental, is that it can help the front-end developer build front-end apps with a great user experience, cheap maintenance cost, and have high performance at the same time. But for those of you who already know React server-side rendering, you might be wondering what's the difference between server component and React SSR. So React SSR only works when page initializes, but after hydration takeover, it doesn't work anymore. But the React Server Component works all the way through the user interact with the app. You can imagine when the app is loading a certain section, it's actually calling the backend and fetching corresponding intermediate format. So the framework will take over and translate in between and rendering out the corresponding section. The main benefit of this, it can greatly reduce the bundle size and improve the performance. After I saw this demo, I quickly downloaded the sample and I was able to run it locally. And today I'm going to walk through this with you and just to brief how I understand what is the React Server Component. So here is the demo. Just show you what I mean. So when the page initializes, it's hitting the root endpoint against the web server, and the node server will send back HTML markups. Followed by that, the front-end app is doing another AJAX call, which is this one, against the React endpoint. And the node server will read app.server.js, which is the server-side React entry point, and send back corresponding React intermediate format. So what I mean by intermediate format, it is basically like this. It has all the references to the client files you need, and it also have details of the markups. For example, the class names, and the images, and the styles, and the content. Those ones are good enough for the front-end framework taking over and translate that into corresponding and content you need. If I do say I will see, on the left bottom side, there are multiple AJAX calls to the backend against the React endpoint. Seems like per each unchanged event will trigger one AJAX call. So what actually differs is only the search text field. With that search text parent, node.js will call node server.js, which will do database query and fetching corresponding result and send back the corresponding markups to the front end. What the front end always do is if something is already in the cache, it will fetch it from the cache. If it is not in the cache, it will fetch it from the backend. To show you what I mean, let's clear all the logs and the filter. So if I'm clicking against any node, it will call the backend and fetching the corresponding intermediate formats. But if I'm hitting that again, it's not hitting the backend anymore, which means it's fetching from the cache. Now let's look at the code base. I know there are lots of contents. Hope that's not too overwhelming, but my habit when I'm touching a new code base is starting from the server side first. I think the main entry is api.server.js, which exposes all the endpoints. For example, when the page refreshes, it will hit the root endpoint and will get HTML markups. But for later AJAX calls, which is against the React endpoint, it will send the React DOM tree by reading React app.server.js. So with that clue, we found react.server.app.js. It is the entry point of the React app, and it loads all the corresponding components from here. You see it's using suspenses for deferred loading. The reason for that is in node list, it is actually querying the database with corresponding result and passing to the sidebar node components. Then let's move to the client side. From package.json file, you can see two things the build does. Number one is running the node server. Number two is a build bundle. Yeah, when we are building the bundle, actually it is calling the script.build.js, which is this one. Yeah, that's a whole bunch of Webpack config. From here you can find the entry point, which is index.client.js, and the output is only main.js. You might be wondering, in that case, it should only build one file, but why it build all those client files? The reason for that is the codebase is using React Server DOM Webpack plugin, and this plugin is actually introduced here. So I don't know, that's a black box for me, but it does all the corresponding front-end build and create all those files for you. So let's go into the client entry, which is index.client.js. It is doing very simple thing, rendering the root element, and the root element has a content embedded. The content is taking a dynamic response from the server side, which is this one. From this function, you can see easily it is taking response from the cache first. If the content is not in the cache, it will be fetched from the backend. So every time the app is calling set location, it will call use server response again, and it will re-render the whole front-end app in this way. And you can see the demo app is utilizing React context, and with the provider, it passed the global state, which is a location, and the corresponding set method into the children. Yeah, as I mentioned, the context provider has already passed the set location to the children. For example, in search field client.js, when the user is typing against the filter, it will set state against the text. Then it will defer set location. When that's called, it will actually change the global state in the content, and it will call in use server response and refresh the new response, and correspondingly it will re-render the front end. So more thoughts about React Server component. I think I favor node.js more than any other web server previously, and for now I'm pretty certain Node is the best web server. If you are not using it, you will regret it. Why is that? If React Server component is published, you see all those supports happens in a JavaScript community only. For example, corresponding libraries on the server side, And also in the build.js, which is the Webpack configuration, it will require using corresponding React Server Webpack plugin, which can build all those client.main.js files. And all those magic needs to be done by utilizing those libraries. If you are not using Node, which is based on JavaScript, can you find another option for that? You may say, okay, it's fine, we just simply abandon this React Server component feature. That'll be a huge loss because this feature benefits the user experience, benefits the loading, and benefits the maintenance. This is definitely the biggest thing, will change the way how you architect your front-end app. Also, it will change the way how you choose your server options.